Hey everybody, how's it going? My name is Nate Caywood, and today we are talking about cameras. What kind of cameras, you ask? Cinema cameras, mirrorless cameras, the camera in your iPhone, any camera that can shoot moving pictures, like 24 frames a second or more, you know? And what is it exactly that I'm saying about those cameras? I'm saying that it doesn't matter what kind of camera you have. You know, there's this old saying that goes, the right camera for the job is the one that you have. You don't have to have a big fancy schmancy camera to tell a great story. Anyway, let's start this off with a personal story. So, about 4 years ago, when I was sort of in the infancy of my directing or filmmaking journey, I was directing and I was acting as cinematographer for some smaller projects, some web series and sketches for some friends of mine that I know through a comedy theater out here in Los Angeles called the Upright Citizens Brigade. And at the time I was shooting on a camera called the Sony a7S II, which is a small mirrorless camera, and it has pretty good video capabilities. But the more I ended up shooting with it, the more frustrated I got because my images just weren't looking as cinematic as I wanted them to. You know, the camera itself is really small, and so the footage felt shaky, and the battery solutions weren't great. And at the time I was taking the cable out of the HDMI and I was recording the feed into an external recorder. That introduced a whole host of problems. There was one shoot that I was working on where the SSD that we were recording to externally ended up being corrupted and we lost all of our footage for the day. So that was sort of a bummer. So I made the decision that I was tired of shooting on a camera that was designed to do a bunch of things pretty well, but wasn't specifically designed to be the best cinema camera possible. So I saved my pennies and I saved my dimes and I sold my a7S II, and against the judgment of most of my friends, one included a cinematographer who now shoots almost all of my projects, I ended up buying a Red cinema camera package. I ended up buying a used Red Scarlet camera package off somebody from reduser.net for like $8,000, and I was ecstatic. The thing is, this camera was made specifically to be a cinema camera. Huge directors, David Fincher, Steven Soderbergh, used this very camera in several of their movies. I felt like I had made it. I got the right tool for the job. And it shot Red RAW and the footage was gorgeous. Oh man, at least it was gorgeous on the monitor that the camera came with. But the camera itself was a lot bigger. It was much heavier than what I was used to working with. Because it's a cinema camera, it's meant to be built out, to have more capability of larger things and other supplemental equipment around it. So it's not quite as streamlined or run and gun as a lot of these mirrorless or DSLR cameras. There are steps that you have to go through to be able to achieve certain things, and it's not quite as quick. At least it wasn't for me at the beginning, and I figured that was part of the learning curve, so it's not a big deal. But the real problem came when I tried to put the footage on my computer, right? Now, mind you, I'm using a proprietary Red Mag, and I put it into a Red Mag reader, all proprietary equipment manufactured by Red. It all felt very official. And once I got the footage onto my computer, I couldn't preview it. I couldn't see what the footage was. I didn't know what it looked like. I needed to get a special software from Red to be able to preview the footage. And then once I got it into Premiere, the files were so large, being 5K raw files, that my computer couldn't play them back. So then I did some research and I found out I need to learn what transcoding is. So transcoding is basically where you are changing the type of footage into another type of footage that is easily read by the computer. So this was a laborious process that took me weeks to sort of figure out the right way to build a workflow. And that's okay, but the thing that I found myself doing is like, it just wasn't that easy. You know, I ended up shooting a couple projects with it, and about 6 months later I sold it. I could only get $5,000 for it. So I didn't recoup my money. So yeah, I ended up losing my shirt on the deal. You know, back then, and still to this day, I look back at it and I realize the investment was still worth it. Because although I bit off more than I could chew with the cinema camera, I learned a lot. And I think the biggest takeaway that I learned was that the camera isn't the thing that changes how cinematic your images look. What lenses you choose to use, where you put the light, set decorations, and the room that you're in, the words the actors are saying, the actor's performance. All of those things are infinitely more important than what camera you're shooting your story on. Okay, why am I telling you this? because I want you to know that cameras don't matter at all. I mean, if you have the money to go ahead and buy your dream camera, do it, because it's a tool. If it gets you excited about getting out and shooting more, do it. And even in my experience, I learned a ton about filmmaking, transcoding, proxies, how cinema cameras work. Those are all really important lessons to learn. And look, I'm glad that I learned all those things. It just cost me a lot of money. You know, normally I shoot my videos on a Sony FS5, which is a small run and gun sort of cinema camera. It's not the best, it's not the worst. But this week I decided to shoot this entire video on a Sony a7S II. The camera that I was complaining about at the beginning of this video. Now this camera at this point is 4 or 5 years old. You know, there are newer versions of this camera. The Sony a7S III just came out this year and everybody's raving about it. But the truth is, I think you can still get some pretty cinematic images with this camera. And any camera. Okay, that's all I got for you. Thanks so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. Talk to you next week. Cheers. Okay, quick disclaimer. Here's the thing. Of course your camera matters. The capability of it is really important. But I think that a lot of times we as filmmakers use it as a hurdle to prevent us from telling stories, which I think is a crutch. And honestly, if you can't give me an articulate and artistic reason why you prefer the color science of a RED camera sensor over an RE camera sensor, then come on, what are we talking about here? Just grab a camera, go shoot a movie. Okay, thanks. You guys are great. Whatever.